All right, Jake Lacy's here.
Hey, how are you?
Our booker just told us that you were coming in after you went to the bathroom.
Yeah.
Did you wash your hands?
I didn't.
Yeah,
Oh, man,
That's what's up.
handshake for that. There he is.
I like it.
Just peed, you know what I mean? Come on.
Listen, I trust you. I feel like it's fine. Did you? I trust that you're a capable adult who didn't pee all over
Hell
his hands.
yeah.
So you don't need to wash your hands.
I love that honesty.
I peed before I got in the car to come over here, and I washed there, and then I was like, I gotta pee again, and was like, how many, like what
could
I'm gonna
have
trade off
happened in
skin
between?
on my hands? Like, how many? I must be losing layers and layers of skin. I already got cracked fingers. Like,
Did you know I read once that if you use hand sanitizer too much, this is back in the old iPhone days when they had thumbprints, your fingerprint goes away, like Will Smith Men in Black style. And it was
That actually feels like a good thing. I'm gonna start using that more often. Who knows? I don't want you to track me.
psychos out there like murder time? Hand sanitizer.
I've been doing this for 10 years. Now it's time to commit the murder.
Time to get revenge.
I had a buddy once in high school who he would sleep with, I guess he got really dry skin, so he'd sleep with socks on that were also like soaked in lotion.
Yes.
Yeah, it was like something for cracked skin or something
Yeah.
like that. And so he put, he was actually big outdoors, but you're a Vermont guy, so you probably know that stuff.
But it's also it's like in the old movies where you see like the lady like putting oil of Olay on her face like a night cream before. It's like it does work, but then you're also the guy who's like, hold up, I gotta get my socks and my lotion, buddy. Hold up, hold up.
He wakes up in the morning just like, well, here's my like sock mittens filled with lotion.
The only reason I know this is because, like, back in the day when we would have, travel hockey and stuff like that, you'd only get one bedroom for like 4 guys.
Yeah.
So we'd share beds.
So he's just
And
like-
I shared a bed with him. And I was like, the first time I got it, I was like, dude, what
Night,
are
bro.
you doing right now? I was 15 years old. I'd never heard of such a thing.
You were like, am I about to be assaulted by a colleague, a 15-year-old?
I'm getting into bed with mankind. I'm just going to wake up with the sock, grab my
Also, like,
tonsils.
what does
God.
he do with like peeing in the middle of the night?
Yeah,
Is he
right.
like, and now I reapply, and now I do the thing. It's like
exactly
25 minutes to take a leak.
Just how a lobster takes a piss.
There we go.
But anyway, that's what serial killers do. They sleep only. They play hand sanitizer.
You played travel hockey.
I did, yeah.
Where are you from?
I'm
originally?
from Fall River, Massachusetts.
Oh, right
southeastern
on.
Mass.
Okay, yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah,
You're what, Western Mass and then Vermont?
I was born in Greenfield, and then when I was 4, we moved to like around Killington.
Oh,
so
sick.
I played hockey. Was not good enough. Was good enough at the end for travel, but did other things in school. My family was like, "We're not gonna. You can't do plays after school and also be in Boy Scouts and also
See, I
like
wish
have
I
a
did
brother
plays,
and
though. You're
travel
smart.
hockey and stuff. You know."
I always think about that with like, we always say that with like, I wish I didn't play football. I fucking hated football, but I played it because you're supposed to.
Sure.
I wish I was doing plays instead of that. I didn't have the bravery that you had. I
Yeah,
was scared people were going to make fun of me.
brave.
No, you know what? I mean, it is kind of though, like, especially at that age when you're younger, it's like sports and macho shit, and like
Yes.
to be like, no, I'm doing theater, I like it, and I don't care. By the way, like those guys always end up coming out ahead. You know what I mean? It's like, oh yeah, it's fucking gay or you're lame. And it's like, wow, don't worry about it.
I feel like I got to like 16 and saw kids who were really good at sports, and I was like, I'm not gonna go pro.
Right.
Like, I'm not gonna be in the NHL.
smart realization
Not
to
gonna
make.
play for the Bruins. Like, this isn't gonna work out for me.
I was stunned I didn't make the NHL because there was when I was
to this day.
when I was a kid, right? When I was in elementary school, Drew Bledsoe came to my school. And one of the questions someone asked him was like, how did you make the NFL? And his answer was something to the effect of, when I was a kid, I wrote on every poster in my room, I will be in the NFL. And that like inspired me to work for it. So I went home that day and wrote on every Patrick Waugh poster, Mark Messier poster, I will be in the NHL, and figured my work was done.
Yeah.
I was like, just
that's-
wait for draft night, baby.
That is the hardest part with like success stories where you're like, what was your secret? And people who maybe have a belief that like these kind of randomized acts that they participated in were the secret. You're like, yeah, there's also 100,000 other kids who are like, I will be in the NFL. Who were never in the NFL. Didn't make varsity. You know what I mean? Like, so to be like, that's how it all worked out is like, well, sure, but your test group is only people who succeeded.
Yeah.
Like nobody
Genetics played a
interviews
pretty big factor, I
losers to
think,
be
Drew
like, where
Bledsoe.
did it go wrong? And they're like,
I also
wrote, I'll be in the
find-
NFL on my posters, and
I mean, I guess
now I bartend in Quincy.
Like confidence is part of it, but I also feel like a lot of people who master whatever craft they're doing are usually like the opposite of that. They're always kind of like pessimistic or like I was just talking to Harlan. He was like, every book I ever write, I'm like, oh, I don't know, this book's gonna stink, and I just put it out, and
Yeah.
people love it. Like, so I find out that more often than not, or at least like a good chunk of the time, the people who succeed are still, even when they're successful, are still doubting themselves or working because I'm not good enough yet, and that's like the drive that keeps you moving.
Yes, I don't know. Oh man,
Go ahead. We're in the
try to-
trust tree. Go ahead and say it, whatever it is.
I try to like, of late, I like for a long time I tried to combat that by like denying it in a way that like in acting would like create a structure of a performance outside of that feeling of doubt. To be like, that doubt is over here, and we'll completely reject it and create this thing over here.
Right.
And that left me feeling disappointed in my own work. And then I had this audition for a role that I love and didn't get, and is for an Arthur Miller play. And I was talking to a friend of mine who's an actor, and I was like, I don't know if I'm good enough for this thing. I don't know if I'm good enough for the, whatever. And he was like, but don't you think that, like, Chris, this role, also doubts that he's good enough?
Yeah, right.
Don't you think that this guy thinks he's kind of a piece of shit? Like, don't you think this guy thinks he's coming up short? Like, that's the whole thing. Like, that's what makes these guys who really offer you in theater or cinema or even television, like, a thing where you go like, oh man, I feel like I'm seeing them and they're seeing me, even though we've never
relatable,
met. Is that they are like sharing that real vulnerability, not just a vulnerability being like, a bad thing happened to me and now I'll talk about it, as much as being like, I never know if I'm good enough and I'm gonna put that into this character because they feel that way, and share this with viewers who go, oh man, I don't know if I'm good enough either.
Right.
Like, to try to meld that thing and not deny the doubt, but to be like, I'm going to take this doubt and put it into this work and try to embrace it and love that thing, instead of being like, I'm good.
Right.
I'm totally good. I don't have doubt.
So do you think do you find it easier to play roles that you do relate to, or things that are completely different? I know some people, I think Chris Evans, when he was touring for Knives Out, was like, I love doing this because I'm not the asshole, but it was great to be the asshole.
Right.
Would you prefer to be where like, okay, I can relate to this and I can pull for myself, or just act completely different than what you are?
Really, for me, I think it's like a clarity of that character. Like, I often play essentially like a boyfriend who completes somebody else's arc, right? And usually women were stuck in that position for like 100 years of cinema. And but part of that thing is that like those characters often have attributes that only serve to reflect the lead. Right. And so in one scene you're like, this is where he stands up for himself, and in the next scene this is where he cowers, and you're like, who is this guy?
Yeah,
like what he's like, what is the totality of
Jake.
this person? Like, I'll tell you
Normal
exactly
fucking
who
guy.
that guy is. And that guy was me. But that is more frustrating than being like, I want to be a guy who's exactly like me or not like me. I'm more like, I just want clarity of character. I want to know, like, who is this person and what is he from moment to moment, and why are we claiming he responds this way in one scene and then responds completely the opposite in another, for no reason other than to serve a story or a character, not to be like, well, this guy wouldn't do that. So that to me is more what I search for. And then of late have like found the confidence, if I think it's lacking, to go to a writer or director. And
I was going to say that's more writing than you, right?
Yeah, and often people are like, look, we're doing it. They either explain it and say like, it's got to be this way because it sets up da-da-da-da-da, or they're like, what do you want to do? And you can say like, I want him to just hold the door and not like allow everybody to walk in and make a whole thing. It would just be like, the guy just holds the door, then he goes in. Is that enough?
Me again.
And they're like, yeah,
You really are. Whatever role this is, it should have been John Feidelberg playing that, because.
But you mentioned how it's to serve the female role, and I feel like you're usually obviously Pete, and then Pete with Aaron, and now Clyde in High Fidelity on Hulu with Robin, right?
Yeah, Zoe Kravitz. Yes,
Zoe Kravitz.
Robin.
It's often the nice guy.
Uh-huh.
I feel like the nice guy has changed meaning as of late, at least on the internet. I don't know how much you live on the internet, but nice guys now are thought of as the guy who's like, I love you. Like you're looking for a guy like me. I am a guy like me. Blah blah blah. And then when he finally gets rejected, he's like, whatever. Fuck you, fat bitch. Are you worried your brand is in trouble here?
The nice guy is not what it used to be, man.
I think. Well, what I'd say is that I think like this show. I think like. Thankfully to the writers and to Zoe that like High Fidelity offers myself and Clyde, the role that I play on the show, an opportunity to be like a good guy, not necessarily like a nice guy.
Okay. That's a good distinction.
The nice guy ends up being kind of like a little bit of just like a spineless kind of like whatever you want, babe.
Yeah.
You're like that's cool that he's concerned with her needs, but also like I don't want to be friends with that guy. I don't want to hang out with a dude who's like, it's cool, that's fine. Whatever you guys want to order, sure. I don't even like wings, but I'll have them.
What's up, Jake?
I'm pretty sure.
It's like a guy who would wear like a white shirt.
Hey, how about a guy who played football for 4 years, even though he hated it?
Totally.
I think Jared told me a story the other day. You guys, I think it was at the airport. You guys were getting sandwiches. And they like forgot yours and
yeah, Jared had to get it for me.
Yeah, like they paid for 2 sandwiches. One sandwich goes to Casey. John's is missing, and they were like, no, you only paid for 1, and he was like, oh, okay. And another friend had to be like, no, I watched him pay for it. Go get him his sandwich.
That's exactly what happened. Right. I had already walked away. I was like, all right, fuck it, never mind.
I'm not having lunch. Okay.
I'm telling you, now what we need.
I was like, don't worry, they got pretzels on the plane. I'll make it.
Now we need a movie that's just entirely the lead is the nice guy and not just the boyfriend, and we dive deep into the mind of you and why you are the way you are, because that shit's gonna be fascinating. Maybe you can play that role.
Do you know? Have you seen John Mulaney's stand-up?
Yeah.
He has the thing about how it's like great that he has a girlfriend now because she encourages him to like stand up. For
exactly
stuff
me.
Where, like they'd be like, your flight is canceled. Go over there. And he's like, oh, okay. And she's like, no, John, engage with the thing. You know, I'm not gonna do his.
That
bit
is again.
It is his. He calls his girlfriend his little Jewish bulldog, I think, or something like that.
Yeah, he's like, he goes, it's gonna get lightly anti-Semitic. Everybody relax. It's okay. It's okay. I love her.
High Fidelity is getting some serious praise. Specifically, are you familiar with Alan Sepinwall? Sepinwall is a TV writer. I think he's at Rolling Stone now, but he used to be at Hit Fix. He's on the internet, at least. He's like my, if he gives the seal of approval,
right on.
Watch out. Not only did he say the seal of approval, he said it should be in the conversation with all the greats that went from book to movie to TV show.
Oh, wow.
And he said it should be in the Friday Night Lights category.
Oh, man.
Which is like, holy shit.
Wow.
I mean, that's
yeah.
That's some very...
You put it up there
incredible.
with Friday Night Lights, MASH, which I did not know was a book or a movie, Handmaid's Tale, which I did not know was a movie, and Watchmen. He said he's like it should be in that top 5 conversation.
Amazing.
Like, okay, I'll take it.
I just like.
I mean, that's some serious company.
Incredible to get to be like a part of a thing that while you're making it, you think like this might be good, and then even 50-50, you're like wrong on that. You know what I mean? Like it comes out and you're like, no, it wasn't very good. And
Do you know when they're absolute pieces of shit?
Yeah.
See, we talk about that a lot. Sorry to interrupt you there, but we talk about that a lot with us, where it's like sometimes we know we had a bad podcast, but it's okay because we do another one in 2 days, and it's easy. But when you know you had a bad movie or a bad show where you worked for a long time on it, that must be really tough. We're like, that was a waste of my life.
It's always remarkable when it adds up to something better than you thought it would be, or that like part of the process that I'm completely hands off. It's like you see the edit and it's like, oh man, that editing saved us.
Yeah.
In a way that like on set you thought this is it's in the toilet, like this is bad. But there's just like pretty early on you can kind of sort out, it's the type of thing where you like again like it starts. I don't know him personally, but Robert De Niro in an interview was like, it's like script, director, co-star, you need 2 out of 3 just to like have a fighting chance at something being any good. And even then, who knows, right? But if you only have one of those, it's over before it started. And so to get to day one and sort of have questions about a script or to like meet the people you're working with and then to think like, uh-oh.
Oh, yikes.
You know, or to
Should
be
have done
like,
this before I signed the contract.
yeah.
How big is the check for this one?
Why does so he does this thing, but then later he comes back and he still has both his hands? Like, where does that, do we explain that? And they're like,
That's what we call
we'll
a
figure it out.
specific reference.
It's like when people aren't worried about that stuff, or you know, that's where I think you start to sweat a little to be like, this was a bummer, this was a mistake. But also, look, the reality of like being a working actor is also that at some point you're like, I got bills and a certain lifestyle, and like not everybody has the good fortune to like exclusively work with Martin Scorsese. You know what I mean? And like be a
Clap it,
multi-millionaire.
Leo.
So yeah.
I mean, I think that you also.
My constant competition, Leonardo DiCaprio.
But High Fidelity was obviously different than this.
Yeah, I mean the feeling like, look, also Zoe is an executive producer on it, and so she has like
She's
incredible vision and incredible taste. And we were just speaking earlier this morning about how a lot of people can point out like what a problem is, but not a lot of people can necessarily offer you what the solution is. And she was so wonderful. You know, where you're saying like, this like doesn't really jive for me. Like, what is happening here in this story or this thing, or why are we shooting it this way? And like, she has the ability as a producer, but also just her eye to be like, yeah, we shouldn't shoot it that way. Like, cross cover this, or like just shoot it in the wide, or yeah, this scene should come before that one because it makes the movement better. Like, often those discussions are had with actors on set where it's just two people bitching at each other about like, well, this is all bullshit. And you're like, totally. All right, action, let's do it. But to have like the person on the other side of that conversation saying like, yes,
Listen
you're right,
to you,
and
yeah.
we can change that is so fulfilling. And then to see, you know, then you get scared that like your voice is being heard and action is being taken, and then you're going to see the effect of that, and you're like, ooh, that was bad. I shouldn't have said anything. Like they totally knew what they were doing. I overstepped. But instead, you know, I'm just thrilled that like the review and the response to it is really positive, and
Well,
and really
I
proud
mean,
to be a part of it.
when you're doing a reboot, you know that there's like some level of success already kind of baked into this thing, right? It's like,
yes, that the format is a working, functioning architecture for something.
right. And then you guys have done it like you just like flip the script, like everybody's changed gender or whatever, so that it's completely different while yet still kind of maintaining the same framework. It's I mean, like that seems like the ultimate recipe for success to me, where it's like we're not going to just redo it, so it's not going to be boring or overdone, but we know that this is going to work because it's kind of worked in the past. I mean, it's like a nice safety blanket, I guess.
They've like very thoughtfully and intelligently and purposefully recontextualized. You know, like it's not just being like, we took a male story and put a lady in it, but are sort of reworking that or recontextualizing it for 2020 or 2019 and saying like, what previously, at least in the iterations of this book, and then also the world itself, of being like, the record store nerd is like classically a nerdy white guy story,
very stereotype,
right?
yeah.
And so not just like, what happens if we put like a cool mixed race, young, beautiful woman in that role, but what does it actually mean to be like black and living in Brooklyn and have ownership and taste over the type of music you like? That is a different discussion than John Cusack in Chicago in the early 2000s, right? Like, it's not just plug and play, but actually like massaging and reworking what that means, and then elevating that story and giving it life, which is another part that like I didn't have the capacity to like articulate while it was being made, and then to see it put together and be like, oh, that's wonderful. That's incredible what they've done there. Like, in the moment, I would have been like, I play the maybe boyfriend.
yeah, right.
You know,
right.
just kind of like a dummy along for the ride. But yes, it is helpful to be like, this has worked. This is a cool thing that has worked twice before, and if we don't totally botch it,
it's gonna work again.
We're starting from a good spot.
Right,
you know?
right.
If you had to pick another movie, show, anything to flip like this, which would you choose? It's a tough question.
Flip gender-wise or race or...
In any fashion you want.
Probably American History X.
Wow.
Just
What an
fucking answer.
I was gonna say 13 going on 30. Yours is so much better.
Yeah, 13 going on 30, 13 going on 30.
Answer.
No,
Wow.
That's a 10 out of 10 answer.
There's a book called
Right on the spot,
Babbitt
too.
from the 20s that I would like to make into a film and update to like the 21st century, but it would stay a man, so maybe that's not.
What's Babbitt?
It's Sinclair Lewis wrote a book about a guy who is the ultimate like suburban like staying in line kind of guy and has like 2 kids and a wife, and he runs a real estate business, and he like belongs to the club and starts to be like hemmed in and start to sort of like just feel claustrophobic in his own life, and so he starts to like cut corners at work, and then starts seeing this woman outside of his marriage, and starts like going out to these bars at night and hangs out with these artists, and starts to be like, this is the life I should be living. This is the life. The one I have is dog shit. Like, why am I'm stuck with these kids? And then in that life, the woman that he's seeing, this artist, he starts to be like, you're full of shit. Like, this whole art scene is full of shit. Like, this whole holier than thou creative thing is bullshit. Like, and goes back to his like suburban life, but never actually arrives at like realization. He never gets to a moment where he's like, actually, I'm ungrateful in my own life and don't know how to accept things. He's just like continually rejecting and refocusing and rejecting and refocusing. And
I think that's a pretty easy one to do nowadays.
Yeah. It's not like an unworkable. How do we update Babylon for Los Angeles? It's pretty easily translatable.
Yeah,
but it's a story that
therapy didn't exist in the 20s.
I was gonna say that's a very relatable one. So
it seems very solvable now with therapy. That's right.
it's just a 1-hour therapy session of the movie. Like,
hey man, don't be cheating on your wife.
your ass is always greener. It's not really the thing,
Try to
dude.
be grateful.
Yeah.
All right.
So we got to talk about Office season 9. First of all, I thought you were in it for like 4 years. I didn't.
That would have been lovely.
It was. I think it's a compliment to you. I think you played thanks, you had a much more memorable role. I was like, he was one season. He was on season 9. Do you think that criticism of Office after Michael Scott leaves is super unfair? Because I do.
Oh, you do?
Like, hugely. I've compared it to, I'm a huge fan of the late seasons, and I compare it to the Patriots if Tom Brady left. They're still fucking great. They just lost the greatest of all time.
Yes. Okay, so what I would say is, a couple thoughts. First of all, if Brady leaves the Pats as they stand now, that is not a great team.
It's still a great defense. They'll still win the AFC East.
That was not a great defense.
What do you mean it's not a great defense?
When Ryan Fitzpatrick hangs 28 on you,
they had a bad quarter. It's statistically one of the greatest defenses of all time. It's all coming back.
They made their
first
bones
8 games.
early. Yes, early in the season, they're playing dog shit teams. That was a great defense.
Right. I would say The Office, Carell leaving, you still have. It's like if Randy Moss was still there and Edelman's healthy,
right,
yeah,
and Brewski's still, like
Gronk's
somehow
still
this,
there.
like this all-timers team is still like in place somehow, even though the years don't match up. And Brady leaves, you're like, those guys could still do something. Mm-hmm. I think what's difficult is that it would be like if Brady left and then you said like, Gronk, you're going to be QB now. And people are like,
wouldn't that be awesome? I would love one game of that. That's a movie.
If you're listening,
like, that's oh my god! Imagine that.
We got a lot of sponsorships going on right now, dude. We got to weed those out, maybe. Pick a couple. You know what I mean? Like that's the hard part is that you basically have like. When Carell leaves, you have this perfect structural format of a TV show where there's like status and hierarchy and you understand the relationships. And when you remove that cornerstone, when you remove that piece, there's this vacuum, and the show, to its credit, does its best with like filling that void multiple times over. But I feel like the criticism is like individual to characters almost, where they're like, this guy stops being funny. And you're like, well, okay, but the entire structure of the show changed. So, imagine if you had like a 2-story house, and then we're like, we're gonna take the first story off. And you're like, well, how does that work? And they're like, it's just a patio under. It's just a patio. And you're like, this house sucks now. You know what I mean? And people are like, that second story's bullshit. And you're like, no, it's not the second story. It's that the entire structure of the thing is completely different than it was.
So are you saying you don't like The Office, the late seasons that you were on?
I'm saying that like it's difficult to work that into the near perfection that it was for 7 years.
Yeah.
And then the response is like, this isn't perfect anymore.
Right.
And I'm like, well, yeah, you're right.
That's what
this isn't perfect anymore, but it's also still really good.
Still, I don't blame the people who, in the immediate aftermath, were like, I'm kind of out or whatever, because it is such a shock to see it. But if you go back and watch I will go back and watch them on Netflix all the time now. They're hilarious. There are still monsters on that show. Yes, there are. Andy goes a little off the deep end. It's a little strange, but like most of the people are still very, very talented actors who go on to be incredibly famous and already were in that moment. But they're great, funny people.
It's look, as like a fan, I want things to last forever. And as soon as they're not the way I want them to last, I'm like, end it here.
Yeah.
Why are you continuing on?
Yeah.
And you do 22 episodes for 9 years. It's 180, 196 something episode. Like the UK Office is maybe the greatest show other than like BoJack Horseman, in my opinion, to ever.
I can't do BoJack.
Really?
I can't. I've tried 5 times. I just can't do it.
How deep in did you get?
Like 2 episodes.
Oh. Oh man, sure. I'm here to plug High Fidelity, but let's plug BoJack Horseman. It's the most. It so deftly. It so deftly handles like addiction and alcoholism and family trauma and inherited trauma, along with like animal puns and Hollywood bullshit in a way that I'm like, it's like. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I saw that and I was like, I don't know if this is like the best movie ever made, but it's everything I personally would want in a movie. A fucking flamethrower, the Manson murders, a fairy tale version of it, Brad Pitt getting fucked up with his dog, like DiCaprio like throwing shit in a trailer and then crying and shading that little girl. Like everything I want in a movie is in this movie. And I don't know if it's a masterpiece, but it is for me personally. That's what BoJack is, where I'm like, you put everything I would want into a thing. Like, and then I got to watch it.
So you're fucked up, man.
So I got problems.
Everyone I respect, everyone who whose TV opinions I listen to, always tells me that, and they tell me like I personally would love it. So I've tried, and I gotta give it a real try to do like a full season. But I kind of I've never been a huge cartoon guy either. So
the cartoon is that's why I haven't like dived into it, but this is a pretty.
It starts out like in a fun, zany, nutso way, and then I think by like the second season they start to dip their toe into like, what does it actually look like when you're completely isolated by money and fame and are also like a self-medicating drug addict alcoholic who has no consequences, and is an animated horse. Like
voiced by Will Arnett.
Yeah, like it's like the greatest thing. But they actually start to be like, this is what it looks like. This is what addiction and trauma looks like, and they deal with it.
I
in
did
a way
not know that was what that show was about.
Oh, I knew. That's what people tell me about it all the time. So I had a feeling
fits,
it got a little something.
It's so.
Wait, sorry to back
wonderfully
up.
done.
People going up to you saying this show is great for you is the most disrespectful thing I think I've ever heard.
Like, have you seen In Treatment? It just, I don't know. It might strike a chord. That or BoJack.
Wow, that's fucking funny, man.
Now this one, High Fidelity on Hulu, that's coming out week to week, right?
It drops all at once.
Oh, it drops all at once?
Yeah.
That's
It's
not how
like
Hulu usually does it, right?
No, I think with this, we were like, the hope is, and the vibe, at least in my watching it, was like, I didn't want to wait around. Like, it's.
Is that how you usually watch? Do you watch bingeable shows?
I
or
have
week-to-week shows, or?
2 very little kids, so I don't watch anything.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
How old are
Like,
they?
I have a 2-year-old and a 8-week-old.
Oh,
wow.
congrats.
Yeah, thank you very much. So
Also, condolences.
we didn't.
Yeah, it's a
there's
bitch.
not a lot of like. I was like holding one with like a bottle and like reading sides, and then there was like something else in the background, and it's like
you don't
just
watch
madness.
anything.
That's chaos.
I was actually talking to my friend last night who just had a kid, and we were watching the Bruins, and he lives in California, so we were like watching the Bruins at the same time, talking about the game, and his new son kept crying. And I was like, you know what, dude, I'll talk to you in 18 years. Like, he's crying into the phone. I can't hear you. Get out of here. So is it tough to maintain friends here?
Bill Simmons put up like a post on Instagram where like he was at a Celtics game with his kid, and he was like, those first years suck. And now my son and I can like, albeit they're in LA, but like they're seeing like a Lakers game, I guess. Mm-hmm. And he's like, and then we went and had like the greatest food in Koreatown. And then my son and I talked about, I don't know, Avengers or something on the way home. He was like, it's awesome. Now I have like this built-in best friend.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's
but you got to go through this
where it'll be awesome. Yeah, it's hard when they're... I just have a hard time, man.
Yeah, mine are 4 and 2, and I still don't like
them.
I'm what?
You don't like them.
Well, I'm divorced, so we have our time with them, and the time that I do have with them, like early on, I was like, all right, I'm gonna put them to bed, and then I'll watch this movie or this series or whatever. And now the nights that I have them, it's like I'm doing bedtime and then going to fucking bed. Also, there is no and then it's just them, you know. So I'm looking forward to that, you know, when they can put themselves to bed or you know, then you can get back to normal life and do it with them. That's when it becomes cool.
I mean, like you're like a couple years ahead of me, right? So like they're, as far as kids goes, it's like that moment where like they start to be able to communicate like their world to you.
Yeah,
is the thing that I'm like, oh, like we're just breaking into that.
Yeah,
and that is. I feel like that's the part I was like waiting for, to be able to like participate.
Yeah, then they get like personality, and because otherwise in the beginning they're just a blob that takes your time and your money and your effort, and they don't give you a goddamn thing back.
All the time, I'm just like, I'm doing all the stuff I know to do, and it's not working. Like, how do I not have enough tools? Are my tools dog shit? Like, what's the?
I had incredible paranoia about just like how do they learn just like stuff, you know? Like do I have to like sit down and have like a lesson every day, or do they, you know, everyone told me like just talk to them and like they just kind of pick up on things, and I was like, I don't think that is gonna work, and it kind of did. It kind of does.
And so far so good.
And I don't know if it's from they also watch like the iPad and YouTube and shit, but the other day my daughter Shay said to me, like, we were playing imagination, playing pretend. She's like, okay, you're the mechanic and I'm gonna come with the car and you have the tools to fix it. And I was like, where the fuck did you learn that? I have never talked to you about a mechanic or tools or any of that stuff.
Dude, there's a Sesame Street where it's like, you know, there's a topic and then like two kids will like role play the event, right? And there's it's like a librarian and a kid getting a book, and the kid who is getting the book, you know, he doesn't mean anything by it, but they're both like 6 or whatever, and he goes, you be the librarian, I'll be the guy getting the book. It's like so intense about like directive that you're like, you don't want to do another take where it's like chill, you know what I mean? Where you're just like, hey, you're the librarian, I'm the guy getting the book. You know, like,
listen, like you said, co-star, script, director, like you need 2 of those.
The other kid's like co-star. The script is a little on the nose to begin with, but this guy,
librarian in the book, like that hasn't been done before. Idiot.
I don't think my dad started really liking me, like you're talking about sharing worlds, until I was 17, and guess what you guys get to look forward to? You get he got a sober driver at the Red Sox games, and it's like all right,
now you're proving your worth.
Now you come to the game, and guess what? You're the fucking keys, kid. That's when he was like, all right, this having a kid thing kind of makes sense.
It took a while to pay off, but now I'm a living up.
But then 2 years Uber got invented, and he was like, all right. Wish I didn't have a kid.
2 decades into this. Finally.
Well, I mean, High Fidelity, you know, like I said, it's getting high praise.
That's on my list for this weekend. That and Mystic Quest. I'm doing nothing this weekend.
Mystic Quest.
Apple
TV
Banquet with Rob McElhaney, who we just had in here, and he was incredible.
Apple TV does a cool. They drop 3 and then go week to week, which I like. That's like a good hybrid. I feel like the binge is king right now. So
they're also
dropping
like
them all makes sense. But
the ultimate drug dealer.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Where they're like, it's not just like the first one's free. That they're like, the first 3 are free.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Go ahead, like just enough to be like, oh, I know who these people are.
Right.
And like, cool. Oh, I understand what the will they, won't they setup is about, like what the goal is, and then to be like, no more. And you're like,
I am
here's
full blown
$14
addicted now.
Yeah, dude, totally. It was like morning show, like they rolled out 3, and I was like, I'm not gonna watch this. And then watched the first one and was like, I'm not going back. And my wife like put the second one on. I was like, I'll check it out. But
seriously.
by the end of 3, I was like, let's get Apple. Do it. Do it.
So as a morning show fan, that is. I thought it was kind of interesting that Steve Carell took that role because I mean, obviously we're acting and none of this is real. But I know some people now. We were having conversations like when I close my eyes and think of Steve Carell now, I think of like that scene and I think of that person and that type of person, and it's like. It's just an interesting, I guess, risk. I don't know if you call it a risk because he's so established or whatever, but it's funny to go from the ultimate goofy guy and then he's slowly, the Fox Catcher movie or whatever that was. And now this one's like, the full end of the spectrum. It's pretty wild.
I like that he's got, I guess would hope for the same, like to wind up in a position where you have enough cred in this industry and also like money to be like, I can take this job and like, it's not, I don't know, first of all, that people aren't like, is Steve Carell a person?
Is this real?
Does that really happen?
No, but when you think about,
but also you can choose a thing.
Rating, reputation, Q rating, all that kind of shit, it matters. So,
also, my understanding is that Apple paid. You know what I mean? Like the blankest checkbook you've ever seen.
That cast alone is jillions of dollars.
That's like they're like yeah.
Well,
they'll be the ones to do like the Weinstein story and be like, we paid him $100 million. You're like, all right, I'll tell the story. I'll be the most disgusting person ever.
I mean, they're kind of doing it on Curb right now with
oh my god, it's
with Jeff,
really
where he's like
unreal.
He looks like Harvey, so he goes to parties and he's like, you piece of shit. I'm not that guy.
When he's at Larry's in the bathrobe and he's got the MAGA hat and Jeff's there and the assistant comes in, she's like, and you hang out with this guy? And he's like, I'm not. I'm not him.
That's hilarious. That's great. All right, man. So High Fidelity this weekend, Hulu. Check it out. Jake Lacy, thanks so much, man.
Dude, thanks for having me.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.